Whether it's the regular season or the off-season, we have you covered as we give you the best Tennessee Titans and NFL news and insight that a fan could ask for. You're watching the Titan Upload Network.
And before we get started, I do need to give a shout out to our sponsor, BetUS. We will talk about them a little later as well.
Question asking about what's changed for them.
Right.
And yes, he touched on confidence. I think confidence is a big thing. I think he got a lot of his confidence back in Los Angeles with those 2 touchdown throws to Calvin Ridley. And I think he's matured. I think that time off for his shoulder left him some time to kind of reflect. And I think he was trying to conquer the world in one throw when the season started and just had too much going on in his head. And I think he has slowed it all down. Even his celebrations are tempered now.
Right.
He's not getting so high, not getting so low. And I think that has all been important for him along this way. And he's right. He made some other throws that were really, really good in that football game. Even when he threw the pick six, I was like, everybody's going to go crazy for this, but I'm not letting this take away from what he's done in this football game, because there's a lot that's good in the football game. And I agree with Brian Callahan. You throw the ball out, you're going to throw interceptions now and then. And we need to get off our high horse, expecting everybody to finish the year with 5 interceptions. That's ridiculous.
Right. And, Callahan talked about like learning what he does better. How much do you think that it's because of Callahan kind of like, okay, I'm learning his strengths now. Like I'm learning what he can do and this and that. Is the coaching taking effect? Are we seeing the coaching take effect on Levis's play as well?
Yeah. And I think what's important to bring up here is you can teach and practice all you want. Until you get in that live fire situation, you can't really see how a guy's going to react. Right.
Right.
And so, we got through those first 3 games where there was a lot of craziness that happened, a lot of unfortunate things that happened, but that gave Callie and his guys a little bit more education on the way Will handled things and the way he processed things. And so, it's one of those things where you got to start over and work your way back. When you go to boot camp, they tear you all the way down and then build you back up again. And so I think that there was some of that, and he's building back up now. And that doesn't mean the process is over now or needs to be over now. To me, it's still just getting started. Like he also said that there's a whole nother level for Will to get to, and he's right. But I think the encouraging thing is he's doing a lot more of just playing football now. He goes out there and he's just before he was gripping the ball so tight and just, staring things down and just, you could see him just overthinking everything. And now he's doing more gripping and ripping. And, Ridley's got 5 catches in 3 or 4 of the last 5 games. And the other one, he had 4 catches. Getting him going, getting those 2 going together completely changes this offense, as you can see. Ridley being a weapon is why Chig scored on that 70-yard touchdown. So it's opening up a lot of things, and it's kind of exciting to see what you think the offense can be these last 7 games of the season. Or how many we got left? 6 games of the season?
6 games.
Yeah. And it may not get better, but you've got reason to think it might be, because also you're not playing 3 top 10 defenses in a row at this point.
Right. Titan with the super chat, and we have to give him the Mike Keith touchdown. Titans for the super chat. Thank you so much. He says, Cory, if measurable improvements from players, Levis NWI, could that possibly change the draft theory going forward? Tighten up.
Well, look, they came into this season to see if Will Levis could be their quarterback. That was the number one goal of this season. We talked about that all summer long. I don't think that has changed. So if he can be that guy, then you don't have to worry about drafting a quarterback. You might want to draft one later still. Who knows? But you could trade down. You can draft an edge. You could draft a right tackle. you could trade down and get more picks. And so yeah, I mean, I think, if number one, if you don't have to draft a quarterback, that's big. Number two, you've got that quarterback 2 more years on his rookie contract. That opens things up for you as well. I don't think NWI changes your draft prospects at all. I mean, number one, his contract's up after this year. You'd like to think they're going to re-sign him. I mean, he's become such a dependable player, for them. But look, if you're in position to draft a Malik Neighbors, a Rome Odunze, a Justin, any of these guys that have been drafted in the first round just about the last couple of years, even a Jackson Smith-Njigba last year, I think he was the first wide receiver off the board. If you want to take him, if say the Titans pick 9th or whatever, NWI doesn't prevent you from doing that. Okay. He doesn't prevent you from doing that.
Right. And a lot of people are talking about, 6 games to go. The Titans, where they stand now. I mean, they're 1-1 as far as the division goes. Jacksonville, I think they're 1-1. Colts are 1-3. I have a little graphic here, and mathematically, it is still in play. The division
2%?
Still is, like 2% or something. Paul posted something about it.
The great Lloyd Christmas said, "So you're saying there's a chance?"
Right, and I just put the division record. I didn't put the total record up here just so it would look good, like this. We do have a chance, but I mean, if you look at where the Texans are right now, I mean, they're kind of on the skids. They got to play Baltimore, they got to play Kansas City. They play somebody else that's pretty good too. You got the Colts.
And they have to come to Nashville.
The Colts got a pretty easy schedule left. And then Jacksonville, is Jacksonville. But I think the Titans, logistically, I think you'd have to have the Texans lose 3 or 4 games. And then the Titans, I think the only game you could have the Titans losing is to the Commanders. You got to win all the AFC games.
Yeah, you're right. You absolutely have to. Look, we're through the most difficult part of the schedule. I mean,
right.
It was when you went. I mean, Miami was supposed to be a tough game, but they were fortunate enough to play them without Tua. But you get Green Bay, Buffalo, the Lions, the Chargers, the Vikings, the Texans in Houston. That was a gauntlet. I mean, that was a gauntlet for a team that was not playing very good football and was not very confident. So the problem is they had one game in there where they could play not great football and win, and that was the Patriots. Other than that, they had to play really good football to win, because I thought they played decent football against the Chargers and the Vikings. They just, those are two good teams. And, they in both games, they had big calls go against them. It's not necessarily why they lost, but it certainly didn't help them in games where they needed things to go their way. But, I like to say, the Titans have, they've got 6 games left, 4 against NFL teams and 2 against the Jaguars. And so, they could do some stuff down the stretch. Does that mean they get to the playoffs? I don't know. I mean, my thing is this: winning helps. It helps you build what you're doing. It reinforces the good stuff that you're doing. It gets guys used to winning again. Guys like to come to work a little bit more when they're winning. And so, you're never going to get me on the draft pick train. I'm always going to be on the winning train. And so, there are, you're not 3-8 by accident. Okay. You're 3-8. So to expect them to win 5 or 6 games, I think, is folly. Okay. But to think, hey, can we win half of those? I think for a fan, I think it's reasonable. I think it's totally reasonable to see this team finish the year with 6 or 7. Doesn't mean they will, but I think that's a reasonable hope to split the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, if the Titans come back and win 4 out of these last 6, I don't see how it definitely means vast improvement. It
means your quarterback's playing well and you're set for next year. It means your offensive line has improved. And by the way, Peter Skoronski has improved. And Radens is Radens. Petit Frere is Petit Frere, but it was a little better Petit Frere this last week.
It was,
And, Daniel Brunskill, who they didn't want to play, just gets it done.
Right. We got a poll going on. I saw you did a poll earlier on X. How many games will the Titans win with 6 games left in the season? We got 32 votes. And guys, vote if you haven't voted yet. Like the stream if you haven't. We got 120 people in here watching right now.
I'll find out where mine's at and tell you what's going on there.
But our poll right now in the chat is all 6 at 41%, which is leading. Okay. So we definitely got.
I got my numbers wrong. I put 7.
I saw that. Yeah, I was like, I had to go back and look at the schedule. I was like, did I do something wrong? Because I already made the poll for
I've got to delete it and start it over again. But I will tell you right now, 50% base, 52% between 1 and 3 games, that's the right answer. That's the right answer.
We got 41% at all 6, 4 to 5 at 22%, 2 to 3 at 34%, and 1. Or less at 3. So I think obviously the realistic answer for our poll in the chat would be 2 to 3%. But you got a lot of people who are hopeful. I mean, you see Will Levis throw flat-footed throws like that and hit Ridley. You're like, whoa, man, look at this dude. If he keeps playing like this, we could really do something.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're not wrong. And look, God, the defense had not had a red zone stop the entire season until Kaimi Fairbairn missed that kick. And so you see how important that is. You see how important that is. They come up with one stop in the red zone and they win the game.
That's a real stat? I haven't even heard that stat. That's crazy.
Now look, I don't know I think the touchdown number is like 67%. But they had given up a score on every
field goal,
or field goal or touchdown in every red zone defensive possession this year.
Man,
they were I mean,
and if you look at the stats, like the overall, like the stat rankings, like it's so crazy because the Titans, they're still number 1 in pass defense. That's been without Chidobe Awuzie and L'Jarius Sneed.
That's a whole other
and sometimes Amani Hooker. Right. And then first against passing yards, then you got 8th in rushing yards, total yards against 2nd, but then you got the points against per game where you're 27th in the league and you're giving up 26.4 points a game. So, I mean, we could have it. Like, I want to hear your thoughts on that. Like, what is the enigma? Is it the red zone defense?
Red zone defense is a huge part of it. Last year, they had the number 1 red zone defense in the National Football League. And this year, they are just giving up a ton of points. Like, when you're giving up touchdowns almost 70% of the time, that's a lot of points to give up. Number 2, those offensive points that they give up count against the defense. Okay. So every Will Levis pick 6 counts against that defensive points per game number. So that is a little skewed in itself. They gave up 17 points in this game that aren't on the defense. All right. You got the 3 from the Jaquan Jackson fumble, and I think the defense gets credit for holding them to 3. You got 7 on the pick 6, and then you got 7 more on the opening kickoff, and then the 1-play touchdown drive on the blown coverage. So that's technically on the defense. But again, you handed them the ball at like the 20-yard line to start the game. It was ridiculous. So red zone defense, turnovers, special teams are hurting the defense on the regular. Okay. And so there's been a lot of things. And the other thing is the defense, I think they have 24 sacks where the defense, where the leaders have like 42. I think the Commanders have 30. And I agree that sacks aren't everything. Disrupting the quarterback is the important thing. But you saw the importance of sacks in this game. I mean, Jeffrey Simmons pins him on the one, then Harold Landry wins the game. T'Vondre Sweat ends a drive. So yes, getting the quarterback on the ground, but hitting the quarterback also creates turnovers. All right, and they have just started creating turnovers because remember we started the year. We got to Miami. Awesome. We got to Miami before they turned over the other team. It was ridiculous, and so they're starting to turn teams over. That's going to make a difference with the defense as well. But, if the offense and special teams would stop giving up points, you'd see that number go down. And if they would hold teams to a few more field goals, like if they could just hold them to field goals 50% of the time, that would be a huge step forward.
Before we move forward, we do need to get to our sponsor for tonight, BetUS. Check out BetUS for 150% bonus on your first deposit and 125 for number 2 and 3 deposits, all up to $2K. Now, I have been betting a little bit this season, mainly on college football. I've done pretty good. Like, I don't bet much. I'm not a big gambler. I hate losing my money. But I have been with BetUS. They're the one app that I've been with. They're have an awesome website, an awesome app. Now, last week I did lose because of the 4 overtime game, the Texas A&M and Auburn. Like it was a freaking dagger, man. Like
I didn't touch that game, fortunately. I went 10 for 10 Saturday. Never happen again.
Nice.
Never happen again. Never.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean. It was crazy, man. I was just biting my nails, and I was like, and it put me down for the week, so I just quit, But if you are into this type of thing, please check out BetUS. They've been our sponsor for a while, so shout out to those guys for sure for sponsoring this channel. Like I said, the promo code YouTube 150 there.
By the way, if you watch TN Nation Saturday nights after the late news, I always finish it with a gambling segment. I give 3 bets every week.
There you go.
I give you a bet on the Titans game. I give you your best bet for the weekend, and I give you a long shot special if you want to try to earn a big payday.
Awesome. That's awesome. Let's get to some of these comments here. We got a lot of comments tonight. We'll scroll back a little bit and get to some of these comments. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Y'all been awesome tonight. William Young wants to draft a right tackle. I haven't really dug into it. Like, I don't know what of the top tackles there are. Like, I think there is a right tackle that's up there that's going to be like a top 10 type of pick from last.
Well, look, you don't have to draft right tackle in the first round. Okay.
Yeah.
You can draft one later. And really, if you draft them in the first round, what do you run into? You run into what they ran into with Jack Conklin. You've got to pick up that 5th-year option. You got to make that decision,
right?
And which escalates his salary into the astronomical range. So you're almost better off at that position taking one in the 2nd or the 3rd
round. Right. Ashton Fiddler says, "Hey Corey, I had a question. I'm disappointed in Snead. He's been injured all season, and we paid him a lot of money this offseason."
Well, look, if a guy's hurt, he's hurt. You can't do anything about that. You can't begrudge a guy for being hurt. This is weird, though. Okay, I talked to Snead in the locker room 2 weeks ago, and I said, "Are you getting back out to practice this week?" He said, "I'm close." I said, "How close are you?" He says, "I'm closer than close." I said, "Okay, so you're going to practice closer than close," and then he goes on IR like 5 days later. Okay, quad injury is significant. I had a quad injury in high school. I couldn't run. I mean, some would argue I couldn't run when I was healthy, but I couldn't run. And so if he's hurt, he's hurt. But this is weird. This is weird. I don't know how many quad injuries take this long. And the other thing is, the positive of it, I think Baker and Brownlee are pretty good. I think they're better.
Right.
They're better than the starters they had last year. Both of them, Fulton and Murphy Bunting. And I think when Awuzie comes back, I don't know how you sit one of them down.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's and Awuzie I think he's supposed to be practicing this week.
Yeah, they're going to open up his window this week. I would not expect him to play this week, but I would expect him to be. Look, because I'm saying I don't know if you can sit one of those guys doesn't mean he won't play. Okay. I mean, because as Callie said, they need as many healthy bodies as they can get. But Baker and Brownlee can play. There's no reason to take those guys out. They're not a liability. They're both aggressive. They're both long. Both jump on the ball well.
Yeah, and Brownlee's up for nominated for Rookie of the Week. Yeah. So I don't know if it's like Defensive Rookie of the Week or just Rookie of the Week or whatever, but you can actually vote for him. I voted today for him. So, and that's, speaking of Rand's draft choices. I mean, so far the draft is looking pretty good. I mean,
Yeah.
Cedric Gray, we still don't know yet,
No,
but
we don't.
he's been out there playing a little bit, I think. But
It's special teams. Yeah.
Right. So far it's been decent.
Latham's,
I mean, you got a few guys.
Latham looks good. Tavondre Sweat looks pretty darn good.
Oh, he looks great, man.
Yeah, I mean, that left club on Shaq Mason, the pride of Columbia, Tennessee, that didn't go real well for him.
Right.
Brownlee's been fantastic. And then, even Harrell's playing still. He had pressure on a play. And am I forgetting one more? One more late pick. Oh, yeah, Mike Williams is starting to play some. He's playing on special teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, all those guys are playing. I would call Brownlee, Latham, and Sweat. I would call them core players for the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ashton had a question. He said, I had a question. Do you think Denard Wilson will be back with us next year?
Well, look, the first time I heard him speak, I said, that guy's a head coach. And so I do believe he will be a head coach. The question is does somebody else think that after 1 year here? I mean, I never would have thought Matt LaFleur was going to be a head coach after 1 year. I thought Matt LaFleur was going to be a head coach. I didn't think it would be after 1 year.
Right.
And a lot of times you have to get these guys a year before you think they're ready, because if you don't take them then, somebody else is going to take them. And Mike Tomlin's a perfect example. Matt LaFleur is a perfect example. And those guys worked out pretty well. So, look, because the Titans' record is what it is, I don't expect him to be gone. But if he gets in front of somebody, they may just go, you know what? We're going to go with this guy. We're going to go with this guy. We like what he's bringing as far as leadership, messaging, planning, So, if I had to push the chips on the table, I'd say he's back next year. But I wouldn't. If you want me to go all in, I'm not going to do it.
And talking about Tavondre Sweat, and I love Baldinger's breakdowns. I know you retweet some of them sometime.
Yeah.
I want to play just a little clip of one of his on T-Pain. And it's good to see those two together, because that's what you want. Like, that was what was advertised when you draft Sweat. It's like, okay, we're going to pair him with Simmons, and this is what it's going to be like. And we're seeing that unfold now. And it's awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, the game is won in the trenches. I mean, obviously, you get the weapons on the outside offensively and defensively. But if you can't block, all right, as we've seen with the Titans, all right, when the Titans are very good, their offensive line is very good. When they're not very good, their offensive line has not been very good. Over the last 20 years I've been here, that has been a common thread, And so, we went into this game, all right, and what were the Titans talking about, especially Jeffrey Simmons? They're weak in that center guard triangle. They struggle in that center guard triangle. We need to take advantage of that. And that is absolutely what they did. They destroyed the center guard triangle all day long, and that was what led them to that victory from the defensive side. Now, you got to keep those guys healthy. They've got to keep disrupting, got to keep being good against the run. They haven't, go back to the Packer game. They got torched on the ground in that game. And so you see what happens when you give up a little there. But when you hold Joe Mixon to 14 for 22, it gives you a real chance, to win the football game. So it's exciting for what they can be, but you got to do it for more than 3 weeks. And that, goes for Levis, it goes for Simmons, it goes for Sweat, it goes for all of them. I think really encouraging for Sweat that we're 11 games into the season, and he'd be at the end of his college season, and he looks like he's just getting stronger.
Right. MB said, Cory, what do you think is the issue with the Titans on offense? It seems like 90% of the time they are snapping the ball with about 2 seconds on the play clock.
Well, that has to do with how long it takes to get the play in. And I think it also has to do with Will Levis trying to set everybody up for the play, trying to set up his blocking, trying to get everybody lined up. And, it is something that we have talked about, that when you get the play clock close to zero, it's easier to jump the snap. And if they could start moving that a little bit quicker so that they could vary their cadence some, I think it would help them. You know, I don't have all the answers on it. You've got a first-time head coach who's a first-time play caller with a new starting quarterback in the NFL, and I think they're working through some of that. I would say.
Right.
I mean, would they have one delay penalty in that game?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's all they had that game.
But he's absolutely right. There are a lot of snaps with 1 or 0 on the clock.
And I was going to bring up special teams. Yeah, Colt Anderson's been getting lambasted all year. But he's the two-tone says we need to talk about special teams. I mean, what is the issue? Is it coaching? I mean, what's the issue? Did they let go too many of their special teams aces? They just brought in a special teams ace, apparently.
Yeah. Yep. And why did they do that? Because the guys they had on special teams weren't good enough. Look, right. I like Julius Chestnut. I do. He's a good kid, and he's a good player. There's no question about that. But Hassan Haskins was a core special teams player. All right?
Yeah.
This is me talking to the coaches in the preseason. Core special teams player. Outstanding special teams player. And that's why I told everybody he's going to make the team. He's going to make the team. You may love Julius Chestnut, but Hassan Haskins. And I said, why are you going to keep Chestnut over Haskins? How many times is he going to touch the football? How many times has he touched the football? 10 this year?
I can tell you right now.
So was it worth keeping him over having Hassan Haskins on special teams? Was it worth the 7th round draft pick and Jamal Adams to send Elijah Molden to the Chargers?
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that it changes everything. I don't think these were great decisions. I think they were short-sighted decisions, and it happens.
Yeah, 17 carries,
rushes.
But most of those carries were probably that game where Pollard got hurt for a little bit. It was like a quarter or two.
He's averaging 6.7 per carry, apparently. So maybe he needs to touch it more.
Right. No, I mean, we were screaming it too, man. And I think they kind of shaved off some of that as far as the special teams, thinking, maybe we can turn these guys.
They brought in Hardy, who's a special teams player. They basically, they're not going to admit they made a mistake, but they're admitting they made a mistake by going out and finding guys who play special teams. I mean, like, did Don Beebe do much in his career other than play special teams?
No.
You know what? He was great. Who's the dude in New England? Slater for like 15 years, perennial Pro Bowler. I don't know if I ever saw him on offense. And you know what? It didn't matter because he was fantastic on special teams. Morgan Cox has one job. Nobody has a problem with that. Nobody has a problem with Morgan Cox just long snapping. All right.
Right.
I mean, Bruce Matthews used to be the Titans long snapper when he was the starting guard. It can be done, but we accept that the long snapper needs to be the long snapper. So you know what? I accept you've got cover guys. And, if you got to play him eventually in the secondary, you got to play him eventually or at wide receiver.
But I mean, you're talking about 2 or 3 games possibly you lost because of special teams.
Yes.
I mean, you're talking about
games.
You're talking about, I mean, what you're 3-8 now. I mean, you win those, let's say 3 games. You're 6-6 or whatever it is.
Even 1 game, you're 4-7.
And you're still in there. Like
you're right there because you're only 2.5 back at that point.
Right. I mean, the Colts are 2 games out right now, and they're 4-7. So, I think it's a very valid argument. Special teams wins games. Do you think Anderson's gone? I mean, do you think he's gone next season or?
I mean, look,
to tell?
There's no track record with Brian Callahan. It's his first year, so there's no track. Like we got to know with Vrabel that he was extremely loyal to these guys and really didn't blame his coaches for anything. Okay,
right.
And so he wasn't ever going to move on from anybody. Certainly not after 1 year. I mean, even Todd Downing got 2 years.
Right.
So we don't know. I always go back to Mike Mularkey, who hired Bobby April, who's like a former special teams coach of the year with the Jets. And he had Bobby April on his first staff, and they were 4 games into the season, and he fired him.
Right.
And because he said, Bobby, I'm sorry. And Bobby's like, I understand. It's not good enough. And they fired him and they moved on. And they're still friends to this day. So, being friends isn't a reason to keep somebody. Look, and I know his reasoning has been Colt has the answers for what's wrong. Okay. Floyd Reese used to always say, if you're not coaching it, you're allowing it. And so that's when you get into, what are they allowing? What are they allowing to happen? That's you go back to the kickoff. They had it covered. Guys just didn't make the tackle. Now, two guys who were on the left side got out of position. And so when he was able to spin out, he had an open lane. I think it was Mike Brown. And what's 24's name? The kid from Dallas. The safety. You know who I'm talking about. They both came into the middle when he hit that scrum instead of
Worley.
No, Worley's the guy they just picked up. This is the guy they picked up when the final roster cuts happened. But they both got out of their lanes when he hit that scrum, and so when he spun out, there was nobody there to tackle him. They should have been ready and waiting for him. And so that's just all about discipline and holding your containment, holding your spot, doing your job. And quite often what happens when you have a struggling unit or just a struggling team period, guys try to do too much. And that's when guys get out of their lanes. It happens in defense all the time. When guys on defense, the defense is struggling, so they try to do too much and they don't do their job. They try to do everyone else's job, and they get out of their lane. And why is there this giant run hole there? Well, we don't have gap integrity. Why don't we have gap integrity? Because this guy's trying to be a hero and make a huge play instead of doing like T'Vondre Sweat does and just take up two spots.
Right.
So that's a really long answer.
All right. Well, what do you think of next week? Let's move on to next week, and then we'll wrap it up here. But what do you think of this Commanders game? It's in Washington. Commanders have been on the skids. I mean, they've lost 3, but they played. It was Philly, Pittsburgh, then Philly. They lost 2 close games, and then they lost this one to Dallas. So I don't know.
Which was a shocker. That was a shocker.
Right.
Yeah,
it was. Definitely.
I mean, look, they're not playing as well as they were at the start of the season. And we say they've lost 3. They should have lost to the Bears. They should be 6
right.
and 6.
Yeah, they should have lost that game too.
They should be 6 and 6. So where this game looked like big trouble a month ago, it's now a game where you'll look at and go, maybe they can steal one. I mean, the Washington's a 5.5 point favorite, and I think the Titans won one game. All right, one game.
Right.
They've got to prove that one game isn't an anomaly. If they can keep that trajectory of those 3 games, though, you feel like they're gonna play well. I think I'm really interested to see if Lattimore plays, because if he doesn't play, I think Calvin Ridley could have a big day. I think there's some good matchups there, for him. I don't think Austin Eckler's going to play. He's got a concussion. So I think that helps the Titans as well. But it all comes down to what it comes down to every week right now for the Titans. Stop giving away points. And that's fumbling at the 20-yard line when you're about to score. That's giving up 80-yard kick returns. That's committing a 5-yard holding penalty on 3rd and 16. Okay?
Yeah.
They've got to stop doing those things. They're a good enough team where if they stop beating themselves, they're going to beat more people. And so, hopefully for them, this victory helps get them out of some of those things where they're trying to do too much and they make some of these catastrophic mistakes. Because I think if they can continue playing the way they're playing and avoid the turnovers and avoid the mind-numbing penalties, then they got a chance for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you look at the Commanders, like if you go up there and you still won, somehow you still won against them, you turn around, you play the Jags, who's definitely beatable. That's a team
you think? What evidence do you have that the Jaguars are beatable?
Right. So, and that game's at home. So, I mean, you're 5-8 at that point. Then you got the Bengals, who have been very up and down this
Their
year. I mean,
defense is struggling.
yeah, I mean, I think the Bengals are like 4-7 right now. And the Colts, I mean, you go to 5-8, maybe you start getting a little more, even more confidence.
The thing about the
and
Colts
you
is
see
you
what
might
happens.
hold Anthony Richardson to 7 completions the entire game, but 5 of them will be for 40 or more yards.
Right?
That's the
Yeah.
problem with the Colts. He might go 7 for
And,
29, but it'll be for 190 yards and 2
and
scores.
Alex Pierce will have like 2
Yeah.
catches for 170
He had like
yards or
another
something.
39 yarder this week. Yeah, because
Right.
he was 11 of 28, I think, this week, which is just typical.
He was bad. But I mean, hypothetically, you win 2 games and you're 5-8. I mean, you got 4 games to round out the season. And hey, man, anything goes, dude. I mean, if the Texans if they continue to play bad and say, they get caught on a couple games, I don't know. You never know. But I think it's a long shot. But I think the Commanders game is a game where you could go up and possibly steal that game, and we'll see.
I think the healthy way to look at it is, let's see if the Titans can win 2 in a row.
Right, that's a good healthy way to look at it.
It's been a while. All right,
Right.
Talking about playoffs and getting back in the look. I agree with you. If they win this game, then you got some winnable games here where all of a sudden you can say, hey, we can watch this team start piling some victories, possibly, pick up, because confidence is a huge thing.
Definitely.
You go back 2 years ago to the Jaguars, they got that uptick to finish the season. They got some confidence and they got into the playoffs. And that's why I said it's so important for Will Levis, to have that confidence. But until the Titans can show that, I mean, when was the last time they won 2 in a row, Rossi?
I can't remember. I really can't remember.
Well, there you go.
We didn't win 2 in a row last season.
No, so let's see him win 2 in a row before we talk about anything else. And look, it's exciting to see them play well enough where you're not dreading Sunday. All right? Because I think there were a lot of people going to Buffalo, going to Detroit who were like, I don't know if I want to watch this game. And they were right. They were absolutely right, because those teams are really good. And at that time, the Titans were really bad. So, it's exciting to say, okay, hey, Levis is making some plays. Brownlee can play defense. Sweat's making some. Look, that's all exciting. That's all great. But you've got to have more tangible results to start expecting something different. All right. You have 3 wins. To expect 6 down the stretch is ridiculous. All right.
It is ridiculous. Yeah.
So
it's very ridiculous.
Doesn't mean it's impossible. It doesn't mean it's impossible, especially with the.
When did we do that last time? Was that with what we were like 3-8 or 2-8? Was that with Vince Young?
It was at 2008 or 9 when they went 13-3, 8, and then the next year they started 0-6 and lost
0-6
and lost 59.
Was that the Vince Young year?
Well, that was they had benched Vince. Carey came in, went 13-3, and then they were 0-6, and they benched Carey and went back to Vince after the bye week.
Yeah,
beat the Jaguars, and went on to go 7-9 or 8-8 from there.
I think it was like 8-8. We ended up going like 8-8 that season.
Like they could have gone to the playoffs, but they blew it.
Yeah. It was like a last game thing from what I remember.
Yeah.
And when they brought in Tannehill, after Mariota, I couldn't remember. I was trying to remember what our record was when that happened.
It was like they were like 1-3 or 2-4, or it was week 6, wasn't it? Where they I think they were 1-4. And then they won in Denver to get to 2-4. Was that right?
I'm pretty sure.
That. Yeah, because that win in Denver changed the season.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Cory, man, thank you so much for coming on tonight. We do have one more super chat. So shout out to Leon. He says it's how you finish. It's not how you finish what did it say? It's how you finish, not how you
start.
start. There you go.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let me just, he's absolutely right. But I think the important thing here is you can't win the championship the first month of the season, but you can lose it.
That's true.
And that's what we saw with the Titans. They put themselves so far behind the 8 ball that there might not be a big enough shovel to dig out. But again, and I know people don't want to hear this because you're always playing. I never talked about the Titans going to the Super Bowl this season. All right. I never talked about going to the playoffs this season. I wanted to see if Brian Callahan could coach. I wanted to see if Will Levis could play quarterback. And I wanted to see if they could start to fix the offensive line. There's still time to answer all of those questions in a positive way. So
that's true.
If you're a Titans fan, just hope you keep getting good answers because you're starting to get some good answers. And that's fun. That's fun to see.
There you go. Cory Curtis with the wise advice, as always.
I'm old.
Guys, and you've been following the team for a long time. So, guys, check out BetUS, the 150% bonus on your first deposit, 125 on your second and third deposits, all up to $2K. Check them out. Link is in the description. Cory, thank you so much again for coming on. Everybody in the chat, thank y'all so much. Hit that like button if you haven't yet. And we will see you next time.
I like a Calvin Ridley touchdown this weekend.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Tighten up, everybody.